Welcome to episode 151 of the Wilderness Podcast. I'm your host, Dilz, and join with me, just like last week, or last episode at least, Magpie and Heartless. How's it going, guys?
What's good?
Hey, guys.
So what we're doing is we're going through each month of worths of updates. I took a huge break back in January 2020, so we're kind of going back and doing a recap, which means this episode is February's recap. But before we get into all of that, I don't know, what have you guys been up to in like the past 8 months of RuneScape? Is there anything, we touched a bit about it last episode, but anything we didn't talk about that was kind of like significant to what you guys have been up to? I guess, Magpie, do you want to start?
Yeah, I guess start by talking about like the biggest probably grind that I've had to do is over those 6 months, which is I think way back in November I mentioned I would do one solo CM a day as like just incentive for slowly grinding towards dust.
Would you CM? Oh, challenge mode raid. Is that what that means?
Yes. Yeah. So one solo challenge mode. They're pretty relaxing to me just because I used to put on a podcast, put on an old episode of, the Wilderness Podcast or something and just like listen to that or listen to like a sports podcast and slowly like chug along, not really go for speeds. And then they said they would change a bunch of stuff with chambers to make solo chambers or just challenge mode in general way easier. And it's true. It's become like super, super easy. I took a small break from doing that while I waited for them to get those updates in, and then after they did all the big chambers updates, which I assume we're going to get to in like April or May, I went back to doing solo CMs, and in mid-June, I don't remember the exact date, but in mid-June, I finally got the dust roll on my account.
Okay, so what is the dust roll?
So the metamorphic dust, if you complete... All right, let's rewind. So challenge mode, it's harder raid where you get all the rooms instead of just some of them like a normal raid. And everything is like got higher levels basically, so everything hits like a truck. Normally there's a target time for each scale. So I think for a solo you have to finish it in 1 hour and 10 minutes or less. If you do that, you get like a point boost at the end of 5,000 points. And then you also get a roll on the metamorphic dust, and which we'll talk about later, you'll also get the new twisted kits. And the metamorphic dust is this like attachment almost that you use on your omelet, and it lets you transform it to almost any of the bosses in the raid. So you can get like a cute little tecton following you around. It's nice because if you like go to the GE with it in like a cute new world or whatever, people have no idea what pet it is, and they're like, "What pet is that? Like, is that Sire or something?" I'm like, "No, that's not Sire, but good try. It's the CM pet." It is like my favorite pet. I like walk around with it all the time now.
Well, it's like essentially like 6 pets in one, isn't it?
Yeah, you get to like switch it up. So it's a really cool pet. It's like the best pet in the game in my opinion. I'm glad that I finished that one. I got it at like 273 KC, I think. So I'm not super spoon fed, but I also went under the rate by like 130 kills because it's a 1 in 400 drop rate per challenge mode that you do under the time.
So how hard is it to actually meet that time limit? Like, is this something where every time you do a challenge mode raid, you're underneath that time limit?
Yeah, generally, like once you learn challenge mode, you'll be 20 minutes under the time for the most part, 10, 15, 20 minutes, depending on your scale. Like the first time you do it, obviously while you're learning it, you're going to struggle to hit the time. But then like if you go either like learn about the strategies that you do or you just get better at it. The biggest problem is inventory management. Like the amount of time you spend at each chest should be minimal because that is where you lose the most time in the raid. Because if you're doing challenge mode, generally you know the mechanics, so you know what you should be doing. But when it comes to banking certain items, you have to bring in all the items that you need for every room. So when it comes to banking those, withdrawing your items quickly, you should like be doing that in like a second or two tops when it comes to challenge mode for every chest that you get to. But if you're new, you're taking like 15, 30 seconds, maybe a minute to do all that. It's going to add up into a massive chunk of change.
Yeah, for sure. So that sounds pretty hectic. Would you say that it's like, is it a good, like, do you find it a good piece of content? Is it enjoyable for you to do?
Yes, I like it. I think the biggest problem with normal raids is that you can basically like you don't have to learn the full thing if you want to do raids. Like there are people who, do 120 raids and they never see a certain room because they don't want to learn how to do it or
Oh
something.
yeah, no, that's
Whereas
me right there. There's so many rooms I have no idea how to do.
so challenge mode basically it's like a more pure raid where you know what you're gonna get. You're getting all the bosses. You have to know how to do everything, probably to a higher degree than normal because everything is gonna hit you if you mess up. Every room becomes like super dangerous. Mystics, which is normally like a snooze fest, just destroys you sometimes. Mutadal is the single worst like room slash content slash monster in the game for me in terms of solo content. It is literally harder than any other boss I can think of.
Interesting. This is specifically challenge mode.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
also like sometimes experience that in a solo, but mostly challenge mode because they just hit like a truck. And there's sometimes you just can't do anything. You just put your hands up and you're like, well, I got hit like 70s back to back to back. So
Yeah, no, I get that.
Mutadal is tough enough in like a regular raid, you know? Like I can imagine challenge mode, it's just insane.
What I love about challenge mode is that it is every single room, because that was the one thing that I both love and hate about the like Chambers of Xeric. I love that it's sort of randomly generated. Like if you're new to it, you'll think it's like completely random each time. But at the same time, when you learn that no, there's set rooms, like set.
There's 2 cycles. Yeah, there's 2 rotations there can
There's
be.
combinations you'll constantly get. Then people start being like, well, I'm gonna avoid any raid. Like for me, I'm of the thought of like any room that starts with a V, I skip because they're a huge pain in the ass to learn, and I just don't feel like it. But I love that challenge mode that's not a thing. Like you're stuck with the same combination every single time, and it's just every single room.
Those are my favorite rooms, actually, the Vs. I love the V rooms.
Yeah, I like all the rooms. The only one I don't like is Vespula. But that's because I don't have a T-bow, so.
See, and that's a room I've never even tried. I've never even stepped into that room. Because as soon as I see it on the combination, I'm like, skip it.
It's not that bad.
It's actually really, really easy once you learn it. I think like all the rooms are generally easy. I think the hardest room is Vasa, and even then it's like not that bad.
I think a lot of people just fall into this like routine where like learning Ulm, the final boss of the Chambers of Xeric, is like a huge learning curve. And when a lot of people learn it, like for me, like I learned it in a bunch of the other rooms I've learned, and so it's like I'm always saying like, you know what, one day I'm gonna learn some of those other rooms that I haven't yet, but not today. And here we are like 150 raids later, and I'm still gonna learn it, just not today.
Yeah, but that's like one big grind that I did over the 6 months. I feel like maybe next episode I'll talk about another grind or something, but yeah, solo challenge mode's pretty fun. They got way easier to hit the time, and the rooms themselves are easier to do as well, so it's always good fun to learn how to do them, and I think just solos are really relaxing in general, but yeah, that's one of the big grinds out of the way for me over the past 6 months.
If you had to go do a solo challenge mode right now, would you still have fun doing it, or is it kind of a chore at this point?
Well, I didn't burn out of it, but I just like stopped prioritizing it once I got the dust, even though I still need like 2 of the twisted kits. Even then, I went back 2 weeks ago and I did one. I was really rusty. I got to Ulm and I like just left the raid because of how like badly I was doing, but it's still like I think it's still fun. There are times where if like I have nothing better to do, I'll be like, you know what, I'll just, if I can't be bothered skilling or something. The problem is like because I don't have so much time anymore, the hour that I get to play every night or whatever, I don't really want to just sit there like clicking potions in my inventory for 60 minutes. So
It's like the plight of every RuneScaper.
yeah, you know what they say, children have time, have energy, but no money. Adults have energy, have money, but no time. And the elderly have time, have money, but no energy.
Yeah, it's the triangle of choose 2.
Yeah. But that's for me, I guess, a big grind. What about you, Heartless? What have you been up to?
Well, we kind of talked about my last 6 months before. It was like prepping for the end game, and then I've had an insane week though. So I was grinding for the Dragon Warhammer.
Oh, and you were over the kill count by like a significant amount, right?
I was about 7,000 KC, and it's 1 in 5,000 when we last talked about it. So that was on, I guess, Friday, whenever we recorded Saturday. The next day, I just went ham, and I got another 500 kills in, and I got the Dragon Warhammer.
Oh, cool.
So I freaked out big time on that one. And then, so with the Dragon Warhammer, opened up a bunch of stuff. I went back to Slayer. I decided it's time to do some Zammy God Wars. I'd already done like a fair chunk of KC, maybe 80 or so. So I ended up getting another Greater Demon's Task, and I did another 100. And I got the Zamorakian Spear.
First one.
My first one on 185 KC, so about 50 KC over the drop rate. Not bad. So that was pretty sick. So now I've got my best in slot like stab crush weapon for a long time. So that took most of the week. And then I decided, I was like, hey, I got everything I need now. Let's try some solo raids. First solo raid. Horrible experience. An hour and a half, 5,000 points, 10 deaths at least.
Sounds about right.
It was so difficult. I have about 150 raids on my Iron Man, just like 3-mans, and I would say I'm pretty comfortable enough to be able to teach people how to do it. And solos are just like another level. There's so much going on, and the mechanics are completely different. Yeah, it was a tough one. So anyways, like I got through that, and then I took a few days off, and then I decided it was Friday night. This was I guess 2 nights ago now. It's like, you know what? Let's just send one more solo. What's the worst that could happen? Surely it can't be as bad as last time. It was quite bad. Not quite as bad. I ended up with 8k points. Only died 5 times. But I rolled that 1% and I got a Dexterous Prayer Scroll. So
no, that's sick.
Yeah, it was pretty sick.
Hell yeah, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. So I got Rigger, Dragon Warhammer, and like Spear or Hasta since we last talked. It's like 3 pretty huge late game items.
Yeah.
But you essentially need 2 spears from Zammy, right?
Yeah, but that's only when you get to Corp, and I'm not going to be able to do Corp without a Bandos Godsword. And I'm not going to be able to do Bandos without, I don't know, there's like 3 different methods, Mage, Range, and Melee. I haven't really decided, but either way, I'm going to complete the other God Wars dungeons before I do use Bandos, because it's easily the worst to solo, like, my opinion. Well, maybe not with the new range method there. Maybe Kree is the worst to solo, but
I would have said Kree, to be honest. Kree, like, is traumatizing.
You think Kree's harder?
I'm really traumatized by Kreeara. Because I went and did it once, like, for over the past 6 months, and I didn't actually know, full disclosure, I didn't know you had to, like, constantly aggro it. Otherwise, it does, like, its melee attack. And I was just with, like, 3 friends, and we had no idea what we were doing. And we were just all sitting there, like, blood barraging the Melior at one point to try and mess with each other to make sure nobody has to heal up. And then all of a sudden, like, we hear this screech, loudest screech I've ever heard in this game. And, like, we just see Armadillo Kreeara rush up to us. And I just remember we all screamed. I probably, like, shit myself, I'm not going to lie. But it was really, really, really traumatizing. So I do not like that boss.
That's brutal. Yeah, if you don't keep the aggro, then she'll smack you around. And she can hit like 70s plus, right, with her range too. Scary ass boss. But I don't know, Bandos is just, he's so tanky. Especially, I think melee Bandos is horrible. I think really like mage or range is gonna be the way to go if I'm gonna grind it. I have the imbued heart, and hopefully I can get a piece or 2 of ancestral before I tackle that. So we'll see how it goes. Or Kodai, that would also be very helpful. But either way, I think I'm probably going to unlock Kreeara quite soon here, or like Aviances, to get those tasks now that I have Rigor unlocked.
3 big upgrades though. That's a crazy week for an Iron Man.
Yeah, for an Iron, it's pretty good. So I'm happy. I can finally take a break. Oh, I also did 100 and something Cerberus kills yesterday. I did a full Cerberus task. And I got 3 smoldering stones.
You got 3 smoldering stones?
3 smoldering stones on my first task.
Oh, so this is your first time killing it. You haven't received any boots yet.
Never killed it before. Don't have any of the the boot crystals, and I got 3 smoldering stones. So
I don't know why, but I found when I was killing Cerberus, there's not a lot of bosses that I actually enjoy doing in this game. A lot of them I do find kind of tedious. I don't mind like God Wars bosses, but I think because I can't kill enough of them in a trip to get burnt out, where you kill, like, you mentioned Bandos. I remember soloing Bandos for a Slayer task, and I think I killed like 1 to 3 in a trip, and that all was dependent on RNG, on how well that went, which kind of drives me insane sometimes.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the amount of kills per hour that you can do and sort of how tedious the boss is. So, for example, I just threw Lizardmen Shamans in as the boss because I needed to kill many of them. You can kill 100 per hour, like, reasonably with supply. So that's, like, pretty good. It's a high amount, even though the drop rate is low. But, like, let's say Bandos, for example. Let's say you can kill, I don't know, what's a reasonable, maybe 6 per hour. No, nice. Probably a few more than that. Not many more though. It'll be under 10 for sure. So under 10, and it's a 1 in whatever 500 drop for the pieces you need. Like that's a really daunting grind, even if you just get average luck. So something like Zulrah, I was only killing 12 per hour back with my original setup. So it was like, I don't know, this is weird threshold. So Cerberus seems to be way faster though. Like, you kill tons of them. It's just so brutal on the prayer potions. I used almost 150 prayer pots for that task, and I'm essentially out.
You just buy more though.
So I think I have to go on. Yeah, you can just go and buy more. That's right. So I think I'm gonna have to take a 50-hour detour to go do some thieving and get a bunch of prayer pots.
What are you going to be thieving for prayer pots?
So there's a meta. The meta for Iron Man is to get 94 with the hard Arty Diaries, or 95 to get. That's when you stop failing Master Farmers. And if you don't fail Master Farmers with the Rogue's outfit, which gives you double the loot from any pickpocketing you do, you can get 20 Ranar seeds per hour, or Raynars, which is pretty good. So that's the equivalent of maybe like 150 prayer pots per hour.
Enjoy that. Does not sound like fun, but
it's not bad. But I wouldn't mind doing an hour of Master Farmers here and there, and then I can do the herb runs while I'm at work, you know. So it kind of works out in a way. But getting to 94 is gonna suck. I'm thinking probably a combination of Arty Knights and Pyramid Plunder.
I think when you break down certain grinds by the hour, it makes it sound so much worse than it actually is.
Yeah, like, it's true.
Hearing some of those, I'm like, oh my god. Like, spoiler alert, I started an Iron Man. And I'll talk about that in a bit. And like hearing like, oh, you only get 10 kills an hour. And I'm thinking like, well, that sounds miserable, while at the same time I'm excited to get to that content. I don't know why.
It's fun to be there, yeah.
It's fun to be there, but I think when you break it down, like, this is the problem that I have with my main account, and which kind of led me to make this Iron Man from when we last spoke. But like, you know, I had a sire task, and I can't remember how much you could kill an hour. But if you're like going super efficiently, you can kill like X amount an hour. And when I look at that, like, oh man, this is still gonna be like a 4 or 5 hour task, if even that, maybe even more. Like, then it starts like really like, this isn't going to be fun at all, and I'm kind of dreading it, which causes you not to have any fun while doing it.
Yeah.
At least for me, like, when I have that mindset. So hearing like 20 Ranars per hour, it sounds rough.
It does, but I mean, realistically, when you're in the moment, it's not so bad. So like when I was doing the grind for, what's it called? The Zamorakian Spear, I could do like maybe 8 to 9 kills per hour, depending on my RNG, because you have to get KC every time. And when you're in there, it's like quite a tedious fight and stuff to wait for the boss to respawn. And so it was like a 20-hour grind to get the Zamorakian Spear, which, sitting back and thinking, is like, wow, that was a lot of hours I spent on that. But when I was doing it, I was quite enjoying it, so it kind of just flew by. Same as OSRS, probably spent like 200 hours there, and obviously I was a little burnt by the end. But realistically, it wasn't, like, looking back, it wasn't like maybe that bad.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's
think. And here's the big thing between grinding for an item on an Iron Man and grinding like a skill. Like I can sit here with my calculator, my pen and paper, and figure out exactly how long it's going to take me to get, let's say, 94 thieving plus 1,000 prayer potions. I can calculate that down to the hour, basically. But let's say I'm going for a primordial crystal at Cerberus. It cannot calculate that. I can assume that it's going to take me X amount of hours, but it could be far, far more than that. And that's what makes those grinds a lot trickier.
Yeah,
mentally.
fair enough. And maybe it's just like because I hear it all the time, hearing people talking about RuneScape being like, it takes X amount of hours to do whatever task. And like a lot of the time, that sounds so brutal. I was talking to a friend that I went to school with the other day, and he knows I play RuneScape, but he doesn't know anything about RuneScape except for that he used to watch me play this janky looking game on my laptop in class. And what's happening with RuneScape 3? Oh, it's coming to Steam. So we took a picture of an ad he saw and sent it to me, and he's like, "Oh my god, can't believe RuneScape's coming to Steam." And I started breaking it down to him, like, "Oh, there's RuneScape 3 and then there's old school RuneScape." And he's like, "Okay, this is confusing." But he's like, "Hey, but I have friends who play old school RuneScape, and I'm pretty sure they've like 100% of the game." And I was like, "You're a fucking liar, man." Nobody 100%'s the game. But I was like breaking it down, like, there's like so many different corners of the game. And he's like, "Okay, well, if you wanted to be the max level, how long would that take?" And I'm like, that takes like thousands of hours, I think. Like, I don't even know. It's such a large number that like I'd have to go and look up on, what number is it? Because it's such a foreign concept for me to put it down in like how many hours does it take to max an account. But I know it's out there, right?
Wild to think about how many hours we spend playing RuneScape. It's absolutely wild. You
say that, and then it sounds like, wow, that sounds like, that doesn't even sound fun when you say it that way. But I think it's like that with anything, because and what I'm trying to say is, like, I think it's the mindset RuneScapers have, is that they break these things down by hours, which makes it sound not fun. Even to like when we're just talking about it, sometimes I'm like, yeah, the grind doesn't sound fun. But I'll read a book on a Kindle, like an e-reader, and it'll tell me how much time until I'm gonna finish the book. It'll be like 40 hours sometimes, and like I have to turn that off because I'm like, 40 hours until I finish this book. That's so much time of reading. But then it's like you forget that you're having fun the entire time.
Well, here's the problem. This is what I always tell people. If you're not having fun with the game, stop playing the game. If you're not enjoying the form of entertainment that is designed to entertain you, if you're not being entertained, don't bother. Like, seriously, it will not be helpful for you. It's not going to make you feel good. If you're enjoying your grind, keep at it, That's the thing. Like, Iron Man, if they enjoy grinding like that for hours, go for it. All the power to you. If you're not enjoying something, nobody is telling you. Like, I think people really underestimate the value of the game being a sandbox. If you are just like playing the game with your own goals in mind, then you are going to enjoy it. If you're letting people dictate how you should play the game, or you should go get a fire cape, or you should, do this, do that, like, then that's where the issues start to prop up. If you're like,
the highs that you get from RuneScape are just on another level.
Yeah.
Like, when I got that Dragon Warhammer, I would say that almost peaked because I was like tired when I got the blowpipe. Like, I was getting sick of Zulrah, but here I was just ready for it, and it came, and I was shaking. I was so excited.
That's awesome.
And it's like a feeling I've very rarely had, and it came from this game that I've dumped all these hours into, and it was such a surreal feeling.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the game, right? As long as, like, I think Dilz, you mentioned, how it takes thousands of hours. As long as you're doing something that you enjoy putting that much time into. For me, it was always Slayer bosses. Like, for some reason, Zulrah, Hydra, Cerberus, those were the three ones that I absolutely adored doing solo, and those are the ones that I almost completely finished the logs for. The only thing I'm missing from those three is just literally the jar of chemicals or whatever the Hydra one is. I have everything else. And even then, it's like, I enjoyed every single kill of those bosses, but I would never go for like 100% completion of the Sire log, for example, because that boss is trash. So
It's miserable. Yeah, it's totally about setting your own goals and figuring out what you want to what you want to do.
And that's why people burn out so easily, because they're like doing these grinds they don't necessarily enjoy. And sometimes Rune's OSRS kind of pushes you to do grinds you don't always enjoy. You know, if you want the benefits of a certain elite diary, you're gonna have to do some shitty grinds. And
I think that's what's really daunting about people getting into Iron Man as well. They see, like, I remember before I started mine, the two that I really, really did not want to do was the Dragon Warhammer and mining or collecting sand. I was like, why would I want to collect 50 hours worth of sand, just to get my crafting to a reasonable level? Like when I went to do it, it wasn't so bad, to be honest. Like any of the skilling grinds I never find bad because you can see the finish line and you can be like, oh, I'm getting there. And it's really, really motivating. It's the PVM grinds that are a lot harder to stay mentally strong.
But like you said, the flip side of that is literally what you said like 5 minutes ago, which is you can't plan around like the hours it'll take you. And that spontaneity is what gives you the moments like getting the Warhammer drop or whatever.
Exactly. Those are the highs and like the big highs, but the crafting and whatever grinds, those are the ones that are just like, yeah, okay, well, I did that. I'm pretty happy now, but it's not the same level. Totally.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
So with that in mind, Dilz, what have you been up to? I know you started a new Iron Man. Is it like Dilz the Second or something?
It is. So yeah, funny you should ask what I've been up to. And actually, I wanted to almost contrast experiences between Heartless on your Iron Man, Magpie on your main, like your normal account, and then where I feel like I'm in the middle, because I was playing my main that I just had in main. I didn't even have an Iron Man, and I mentioned last episode that I got the Blade of Saildor, and I was like, wicked drop. That's 130 mil, however much it was when I got it, but I kind of bought a few things, and then I had this like, now what moment.
Yeah.
Like I was like, what do I do? Do I just keep doing, try to get another Blade of Saildor to sell it and make more money? I was like, I don't really know what to do. And eventually I started doing other grinds. I mentioned it last episode, but and then I also mentioned how I got the Wintertod pet. And one big thing I noticed from both of those, now I was kind of suffering from a bit of a burnout, so that might add to it. But when I got both of those drops, I was kind of like indifferent. Like I was like, oh, this is really cool. But I didn't have like a moment where I like, you see those YouTubers freaking out about some drop they got and they're like throwing their chair across the room and screaming,
That's me every time.
Yes, I never had any of that. But Magpie, what I wanted to ask is like, do you get those those crazy heart dropping moments when you see that crystal shard drop from challenge mode?
If you're talking about the metamorphic dust, then
yeah,
relative to like how I'd like to think I'm at least pretty chilled out, but relative to that, I did go crazy because it was like the one grind that I was going for, like Heartless going for his Warhammer. And normally I have my instant replay up, but for some reason it didn't record the audio, so I can't actually go back and like tell you how hype I was in terms of like freaking out. But I definitely have never like thrown a chair across the room like, Mom, get the camera, like fucking all that stuff. But I definitely get hyped for some things. I think the Inferno was the only time I've properly like lost it at the game, where like I was legitimately on the floor almost weeping. And it didn't even take me that, like, it wasn't like a super, super long grind. It took me, I think, an average number of attempts over the 3 or 4 weeks that I committed to doing the Inferno. But even then, it was the mindset of being in the so-called lava prison and then breaking that. It was, and I remember also my roommate had friends over, so I had to be really quiet while I was freaking out. So I was just sitting there like silently weeping into my like chair, sitting on the floor, not knowing what to do with like my hands and my feet because they were shaking so much. That was the only
Just
time
go in the
where-
bathroom and throw up because you have so much adrenaline held in.
No, fortunately, it was nothing like that. But it was like 2 degrees lower than that. I think, like on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is like go and throw up from how excited you are because of all the hormones or whatever. I would probably be on a 7 or an 8, definitely.
Okay, fair enough. And then, yeah, Heartless, you already mentioned how you get super excited when you get your drops.
100%. Yeah, Warhammer and the Zulrah prison was the exact same thing that he just described, just like shaking and being like, oh, it's this strange feeling where you've just been mentally you're just here. You've been here for so long. You're not going to leave. But now here you're finally free. And it's just this insane feeling. And it's very hard to describe.
And it turns on a dime, exactly.
So I feel like almost for my main account, I might have lost that just because I didn't have any like meaningful grinds. I was just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff, right? And so getting the Wintertodt pet, I wasn't like trying to get the Wintertodt pet, but I was doing Wintertodt to train fire making and the pet was a thing, so like I wanted it, but it wasn't that big of a deal either way, I guess. But anyways, all of these, like all that like mindset, me like thinking like kind of retrospectively looking back on them, I was like, you know, maybe I just need to change gears and take a break from my main account. So then when we talked last episode, I was like, oh, you know what? Fuck it. Let's start a hardcore Iron Man. I've been wanting to do this for so long, but I'm so turned off from some of the early game grinds and some of the big skilling grinds. But I was like, you know what? Let's just do it, and we'll try to have fun with it. So I did make my hardcore Iron Man. He's only free to play right now, and I'm kind of working through all the free to play quests. So I've got 3 left. I got the Corsair's Curse, Demon Slayer, and Dragon Slayer are the 3 quests I have left to do. It's been fun. It's like I'm not a huge fan of the early game grinds, so a lot of it is kind of boring, and I don't really know what to do. And I'm just kind of like, you know, I'm like, you know what? I'll go kill chickens. I need food, so I'll just kill chickens a bunch until I have enough food stacked up. But like, I don't know. My idea right now is to like complete all the free to play quests. That's my goal. Maybe not all of them, but enough. Get up to Dragon Slayer at least. And then I might think about bonding my account and going into members. And then from there, I could start exploring more of the game.
Yeah, but bond up for sure. Bond up, set some goals, short, medium, long term, and then just send it. That's the way to do it.
Because one thing I am trying to avoid, and I had a few people from the clan chat mention it, but I'm trying to avoid like using actual guides. I know there's like an Iron Man efficiency quest list, like the best way to do quests for an Iron Man. Yeah, part of me is trying to not look at that, although I kind of want to look at it now as I'm getting near the end of all my free-to-play quests. But I'm worried of falling into this trap of like, do things as efficient as possible so that I can get to the next thing. I'm worried I'm going to stop enjoying what I'm doing right now because I'm always going to be looking ahead at the next milestone that I just want.
I'm 100% behind you on that. I used the guide to get to Wintertodt, and then I also used the guide just for some general ideas of what good goals are early game, because the one thing you never want to do on an Iron Man or any account is to be like out of goals to do, because that's when you're going to start to feel like that's when people go to the G and stand there for 3 hours when they log in, you know?
Yep.
Or log in, do a daily, and log out on your main. That's when you have no goals left and you're not progressing towards anything, so you're essentially done with the game. So it's always important to have something. I really like to have something long-term in mind, and then something like short and medium, just so that you always know where you're going. You don't have to rush to get there. You can get there in your own way, but it's really important to be able to know where you are going or where you want to be.
I feel like I said this almost exactly a year ago. I'm having like strong deja vu, but I'm like 100% behind you on that.
Yeah, even like main accounts are the exact same thing. I think the goals, it's on a main account, it's easier to lose sight of your goal. Like Magpie, you have it down good where you're grinding out items from like pets and like collection logs and like the challenge mode raid stuff. See, my count's in this weird middle ground where I'm not quite there. I don't have a bunch of gear to like start. I mean, I could look at pets, but the grind is just too daunting right now. Yeah, I mentioned this so many times. It's getting too I'm repeating too much, but I'm down to the gold grind where I'm like, okay, let's just get gold so I can buy the next item. And then when I'm like leveling guide, I'm just leveling skills because they're not 99 yet. But there's no I don't need 99 fishing. It's not doing anything for my account, but I'm just doing it just because.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, gold grind is path to the dark side, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I've only ever once in this game grinded for gold. Like actively been like, what do I need to do in this game? I need money. I need money. Like there's only one time, and it's when I had like one Inquisitor piece, I think, and I was trying to get the full set. And it was just like, there's nothing for me to do with this unless I get the entire set, so I need to just grind money for the entire set. That is the only time. Any other time, like when I was building my account, I was grinding content, or I was grinding to learn content. And it's like, if you need money, set yourself a goal of learning how to do chambers and do 150 chambers. Set yourself a goal of doing 300 Zulrah and learn how to do Zulrah. And the money will come like, with the content. But
anyways, I guess in a nutshell, it's kind of a bunch of stuff that I've been up to. My Iron Man, I've been playing a lot. But I'm so early in the game that like, yeah, I'm just kind of questing. I'm kind of doing things at my own pace, like not being very efficient. But it's been fun, and it's nice to have even just mini goals to kind of go out and achieve. Whereas my main, every goal is there are no mini goals on my main anymore.
Yeah, there's always things to do on an Iron, so goals are like pretty easy to figure out.
Yeah,
even account maintenance is a goal. So you can like log on and be like, oh, I need to get my supplies ready if I ever want to do something, or like if I want to do Slayer, I need to go get this stuff.
Totally.
Get more ammo or something.
Like doing herb runs and stuff is like, it like feels very good because every time I do a herb run, I'm like, oh, there we go. There's 70 more per potions or whatever, XP for herb lore, etc. Very, very nice. And then you get to do all the secondary stuff with the patches, and actually it feels useful. Snape grass, limpworts, stock those up, you know? White berries, yeah, the lot.
But eventually I'll probably want to go out and start doing. I've never done Theater of Blood yet, so my main account is all PVM ready for that sort of stuff. I think I just need to take a step back, and maybe starting again fresh on a new account is kind of like a nice breath of fresh air, which is kind of like ironic saying this so close to a league's coming up in a couple weeks. Guess more on that later. We have a lot to talk about.
We'll take your hardcore to theater with us, no problem.
Sick. It's not gonna make it at all. But anyways, though, we have a lot to talk about for the month of February, so we should probably dive in and start picking through what sort of updates have happened. So we're going back to February 6th, 2020. And this was a big one. This was a big update, I would say, for the entire year. This was the update so early on, too.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess the biggest update was COVID, but still, this is like the biggest for the game. Nightmare of Ashiyama. All right. So, I'll quickly go through this little blurb of lore. Okay. It started with a dream. For too long, the sirens of Ashiyama had been plagued by a terrifying monster known only as the Nightmare. They dreamt of one day defeating the creature for good, but they only succeeded in driving it across the ocean to a far-off land where even the bravest of sirens fear to tread, land called Mauritania. But one siren, Shura, refused to give up on her dream. Many of her companions had fallen victim to the Nightmare in that final battle. And she wasn't about to let it hurt anyone else. She journeyed across the ocean where she found the Nightmare lurking in the cursed town of Slep. Is it Slep or Sleep? Yes. Yeah, what is it? Slep?
I think it's Sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, I also think it's Sleep.
Okay.
Probably makes
sense. The Nightmare lurking in the cursed town of Sleep. It was injured, it was weakened, but it was slowly making its presence known, feeding on the dreams of the innocent townsfolk and growing stronger every moment. Shura can't face the Nightmare alone. She needs your help to beat it back, to keep it contained until she's able to defeat it once and for all. Were you up for the challenge, or will you fall like so many others? the eldritch power of the nightmare. All right, so new boss got introduced and a whole new town.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait, was this? No, this town was already in the game.
It was already there, but they added the dungeon to it.
No, I'm pretty sure this introduced sleep. And then they added the quest later.
What town am I thinking of then? Because they added something after...
Mireditch?
Yeah, Darkmire is what they added after, right?
No, I'm thinking if it was before. It came around, I think, in between...
Sleep was released in 2018.
Okay, so that's what it was. That came out after.
Yeah, I knew it was there. So it had been there a year before, and it was like prepping for the nightmare, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
But there wasn't any content there. It was just...
Gotcha.
This sort of town full of strange people, and then they released the stuff later.
For sure. Okay, so before we go into what items and rewards came with this new boss fight, let's talk about the new boss fight and I guess just everything around this update, ignoring the actual items itself. Magpie, you've done this boss, right?
Yes, I have done this boss a lot, actually.
Heartless, have you done this boss?
I have not.
No, okay. Have you been to the area at all?
Yeah, I've been to the area and I've seen people do it, so I have some insight.
Okay, cool. So what do you guys think of like the aesthetics of it? Like the new the sirens and the actual temple, the dungeon temple that was added with where the boss is.
I think it's very consistent with Mod G's art style, but more in more old schooly, with one exception. When you go through the nightmare like dungeon, before you get to the boss itself, for some reason there are giant statues of like people in bandos or something, and for some reason that really kills the immersion for me, because that feels like a massive break from the immersion to just have people in bandos gear as giant statues. It does not fit in with the aesthetic at all, and I don't
Oh, you can see that, eh? I
never noticed that.
Almost want to go visit it.
It's a minor pet peeve of mine when I'm running through.
Okay, no, that makes sense. And I know what you mean where, like, it's in theme with Mod G's other, especially like character designs. The sirens are very vibrant. Kind of reminds me of her design of the, I don't remember what it's called now, but it came with the Cabos Lowlands, that new Slayer monster. Or new Slayer master.
Yeah, Konar.
Konar, that's it, yeah. So it's a very...
Yeah, so Mod G did both of them, so her art style is very evident.
Yeah, it's very it very steps into like the realm of like fantasy and not so much like realism. Whereas like RuneScape's always trying to like, they're kind of like walking that line of realism versus fantasy, because it's like it's a fantasy game, but it's not so out there where you have like a race of sirens. Maybe what's the weirdest? You have elves. You have
I think like the elves update was one that got like quite a bit of backlash during Song of the Elves in 2019.
Yeah, it's like they're almost too fantasy.
Yeah, so I think Mod G did those as well. So I think she toned it back for this one, or like learned. I think she learned a lot from her initial Song of the Elves sort of work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, definitely. So let's dive into the actual boss fight itself. Now, Heartless, I know you haven't done it yet, but maybe you can like give your opinion from like afar, because I have done the fight. I've only done a couple kills though, so I can touch on like, I guess, the enjoyability and like the learning curve involved. And then Magpie, you can talk about it from like the pros outlook. You know what I mean?
Sure. I love how I'm labeled as that, but sure.
Magpie, do you want to, I guess, maybe walk us through the fight a little bit? Because like, I don't know, honestly, I don't know the fight well enough to go through like the different phases and the different mechanics.
Sure. So we'll start by saying there are 3 phases. Each phase is split into 2 sections, which sounds complicated, but I'll like walk it through so it's a little bit easier. You don't actually damage the nightmare. First, you have to break off its shield. You do this with melee. So at the start of every phase, you melee the boss until the shield breaks. The second half of the phase, she stops being attackable and the pillars light up. Because her shield is broken, you start maging the pillars. And then once you kill, quote unquote, or charge up all the 4 pillars, one in each corner of the room, it will do exactly 1/3 of the nightmare's health. So I think the default health for her is 2,400 when it comes to her actual HP. So each time you do 800 HP. So the first phase you finish off and she loses 1/3 of her health. Second phase you start over, melee the shield away, and then charge up the pillars. And then the third phase you do the same thing, and then that time is when she dies. She has mage, melee, and range attacks, and what she will do is, I feel like people never actually learn this until way too late when they start to learn it. She aggroes the person with the highest defensive bonus as the tank. So if you're doing it with a team, normally everybody, unless you have Inquisitors or something, but everybody will bring in a fighter torso except for the tank, who will bring in a Bando's chestplate, because you get the same amount of DPS, but you're not going to be chosen for the tank. And so one person is the designated tank. If she melees, she will hit everybody in that section, like where she's looking. So everybody generally stands on the opposite side of the tank while they are meleeing the boss. She has like the melee attack where she swipes up, can do like up to 50 damage, I think. Then she has a range attack where she like looks like she's having like this clunky bone glitch thing, and then throws out her range attacks. And then she has a mage attack where it looks like she's like twirling flowers in the air, rose petals, and then she hits you with a mage attack. And so the idea is you have to switch your prayers the moment you see her animation before the projectile comes out, and you can change your prayer before the attack damage is calculated. So you can, like, this is the biggest mechanic, which is just learning how to avoid most of the damage from auto attacks. And then each phase, like I said, there's 3 phases. Each phase has 2 specific special attack mechanics that are unique to that phase. So the first phase, you have the flower power, which is where she divides the room into 4 corners. One corner will have flowers bordering it, and the other 3 corners will have like rotten flowers or dead flowers or something. And you have to stand on the side with the good flowers, where that corner is the safe zone, and you will not take damage. If you stand away, you'll take damage rapidly, and you'll heal her as well. So you'll have some time to basically set that up and go to the right corner. And then the second special attack is the husks. And what happens is she randomly chooses a bunch of people, and she traps them in place and sends out these husks which attack them. And so you have to basically kill the husks so you can free yourself and start moving around. For the second phase, she can switch your prayers around, which I thought is a really cool mechanic that isn't done anywhere else in the game, I don't think. But what she'll do is she'll like curse the entire room, and then every protect, like auto attack protection prayer that you have, protect from melee, protect from missiles, protect from magic, shifts 1 to the right. So if you click on protect from mage, your character's going to pray protect from range. If you click on pray range, you're going to pray melee. And so you have to like try and calculate, if she's doing her range attack, you want to pray mage so that your character shifts over and prays range instead. And then she has, in the second phase, the parasites, which she'll infect a bunch of people. She'll impregnate you, as the chat says. And then after some time, a giant parasite is going to leave your body. It's going to hit you for 50 damage and then start healing her really quickly. So what you have to do is you drink a Sanfew serum or some kind of disease cure to weaken the parasite, and then you'll only take 5 damage when it bursts out. And then you have to kill it ASAP because they heal her like crazy. So always prioritize the parasites. And then once you finish the second phase, you kill off the shield and then charge up the pillars. You get to the third phase. The third phase, she throws these turnips on the ground. If you walk past them, you pop them, you can spread the infection that it gives you. It makes you start yawning. And what this does is it stops you from being able to run. And it also makes you attack slower, so it slows down your DPS as well. And the reason why this is a big killer is because it pairs that special with the second special sometimes. If you get a yawn passed on to you really late in the cycle, her second special is like this falcon kick, weird like zoom attack that she does, where she dives into the ground, pops up from another side of the room, and will rush in a straight line from one side to the other. And anyone who's caught will take like up to 68 damage, I think. I don't know if I've seen it hit over that, but I could be wrong. And so the moment you see her like pop up from another side of the room. If you're in her line of sight for that line, you better haul ass to the left and right. And if you're yawning, you can't run, you'll probably get stuck. And at that point, it's good night. So I think those are all the mechanics. There's also portals that pop up every now and then on the ground. They're like black portals that you have to make sure you're not standing on before they explode, or they pop up out of the ground, I guess. And I think that is everything for the fight. You've got your 3 autos, your phase-specific attacks, and how to kill her. So thank you for coming to my guide. Appreciate you.
All right, guys, we'll see you next week. That is a mouthful. The fight, I think the fight's really cool. And I've only done it a few times, but I think like the theme of it is pretty badass. And I think all the mechanics kind of play into the theme a bit. Mm-hmm. Some of the mechanics, as you mentioned, are like brand new that we haven't seen in the game before, and they're really cool. I love the idea of like your attack speed being slowed down.
Yeah.
That's cool. When I did it, I did enjoy the fight. I liked the way it was set up, where it's both something you can do in a group and you can do it on your own in like a free-for-all world.
Yeah.
When I was learning it, I was doing it in a free-for-all world, and it was like we killed it most of the time. Like I'd say like 80-90% of the time the boss actually got killed. But I think because it scales with how many people are in there, that if you have a bunch of noobs and they die right away, then everyone else is left with having to take on this really strong boss.
Release day looked absolutely wild.
Oh yeah? Oh, I bet. Shit.
I was watching a bunch of streams and it was just, yeah, no one knew what was going on. The prayer switching when it first came out, there's some funny videos. People did not know what was happening.
Good times.
What are you guys' thoughts on the boss? Do you think it was like a welcomed piece of content? Does it fit well with kind of, I would say like Theater of Blood, Chambers of Xeric are the two like big PVM contents that OSRS has got. Does this fit well with them?
Make no mistake, this is definitely along the lines of Corp or something, where you're just going to go do it with your friends a bunch.
Maybe get lucky, yeah.
But it's not going to be the same in terms of it's not really a raid or something. Although I like the boss. I think it introduces a lot of new mechanics and concepts that they haven't done before, which in hindsight is like really surprising when you think about it. Like it's taken them this long to introduce a boss that like shifts your prayers, which is one of the few things that you can do in this game to like mitigate damage. So things like that, I'm surprised it took them so long, but otherwise I think it's a good piece of content. I like how, and I think Dilz, you're a big proponent of this. Most of the drops suck. It's just if you land on one of the golden items, like one of the uniques, where literally your life is made essentially because of how expensive they are, which I guess we're going to segue into in a bit.
Yeah, it's way better than the Vorkath or Zulrah model, which are both terrible for game health.
And also, it gets kind of boring to grind out the monsters over and over again because it's just good money.
Yeah.
So you're not really getting excited.
It's not that's the problem with Vorkath for sure, is like it's Vorkath more than Zulrah is not exciting because every kill is worth like 150k, but you're not really like realistically going to see a unique even in 1,000 kills.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I totally agree.
So you're just gonna make 150 mil in 1,000 kills, and you just know that. So it's actually just a money grind. Whereas Zulrah, at least there's the mutagens and there's the 1 in 512 uniques that are kind of cool.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a big difference between the two. Even though Zulrah is also kind of a cash cow in that sense.
Cash cow, yeah, absolutely.
I think comparing it to Corp is kind of the better way of doing it because, like, a lot of us. I mean, I get excited for when raid content comes out, even if I'm not doing it. But I like the direction that raid content is kind of shifting the game, and I don't really think Nightmare is kind of PVM content that would fit in the raid tier, but the mechanics of it and like the way I guess they kind of designed it kind of makes me excited for like the direction of PVM bosses that they're creating.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the real problem is not creating the bosses, but creating the items and the drop tables for these late game PVM content pieces is the real problem. Because there's only so many best in slot things. We only have 3 styles of combat, and there's only so many best in slots you can release before you start to get like, really out there with the kind of items, and then they become so niche that they're not important in a way. Like Justicar, for example, it's cool. It's best in slot tank gear, and it has like sort of a tank reduction, but realistically the game's all about DPS, so it's not very relevant outside of a few niche locations. So therefore it's not desirable. So if Justicar was the only sort of level stuff that the Theater of Blood have, no one would ever do the Theater of Blood, even though the content is awesome. So they have to release chase items and continue to push the power like reasonably, like they released a stab weapon, then they released Corrupted Gauntlet, so they released Best in Slot Slash, and then now they've released Best in Slot Crush. We're about to talk about the items, but anyways, I just curious what your 2 thoughts were on just sort of like items being introduced to the game and sort of the challenges that come along with that.
I have to agree with you there. Yeah, it's like they don't. I mean, because community will, since we can vote on everything, they'll just vote down things that are too strong, or if they just like for some reason don't want it. Like when you look at Chambers of Xeric too, a lot of items got voted out, and I know it seemed like it became like a
spite thing,
a worry that Chambers of Xeric wasn't going to be worth it.
Oh yeah.
Like with they had like twisted armor that ended up getting voted out, and maybe that was it. But that's why we have like Dragon Claws and we had the Dragon
Somehow
Harpoon.
the twisted bow made it through.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough, and sometimes I don't really get why some items pass and some items don't. But like I think especially now with the whole Rev Caves pushback, like I think Jagex is a little bit more gun shy when it comes to releasing the next Vorkath or the next Zulrah.
Yeah, but I think there's a big difference between Zulrah, Vorkath, Rev Caves, which is all like large money makers, versus raids where the items are unique and highly affect the end game meta.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I think that the reason it's so hard to release, as you mentioned, like it's hard to come up with the items that are going to fit with the newest PVM content, because the last thing is Jagex, they don't want to come and be like, here's our ideas, and they all get voted down, and they're like, well, we have to bring this content out, but we have no items to bring it with, so let's just give it a bunch of money.
Yeah, and I don't want them to have to resort to that, so I don't really know what the next best would be. Probably like some rework of Magic, but I don't know. Let's talk about that. That's for another day. Let's just rip through the items at the Nightmare right now.
I think you guys hit the big things. There are only so many gaps to fill, and like there's so many indicators that they're going to just start adding attachments more and more. 2019 was the year of attachments, in my opinion. You got the Hydra, which is like a Hydra's Claw attachment to the Hasta. You have, now that I said that, I'm absolutely blanking on what else I was
Basilisk Jaw.
The Basilisk Jaw, thank you, attachment, because they want to make best in slot items, but they don't want to devalue the grinds for the other gear as well. So
Ferocious Gloves.
Yeah. Thank you. Upgrade attachment to the Barrow's Gloves, or no, just Hydra's Leather. But they wanted to make it an attachment to Barrow's Gloves and change their minds. They had a bunch of different ideas. It goes all the way back to Zenites, I guess, as well, because those are technically upgrades on like the Fury.
Even Twisted kits, are like recolors that are super chase.
Yeah.
And they make the content grindable for people that are in sort of that late game territory.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, imagine if they added, like, what's a really popular set of armor? Like Bandos. Like, they added a attachment to the Bandos armor to make it look even cooler.
Exactly.
That would be super, super chase.
What I like about the Nightmare is that it eschews that by just, like, completely introducing new gear, new armor into the game. I feel like it's a good set of armor and a good niche to fill, even though, as we're probably going to talk about, like the exact niches are very specific, and so the armor is very, 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 very centralized to certain content. Because if it's a set bonus, you can't use it for Slayer because you need a Slayer helm. That's always going to be better DPS, so you can't use Inquisitor set. If you're doing any kind of content with a spell book, it limits the ability of the Nightmare Staff, things like that, where it fills very specific niches, and I'm not sure how many more there are to fill in the game.
Yeah, I totally get it. And it's kind of like one of my big gripes with MMORPGs like World of Warcraft is that they, at a certain point, they come out with a new expansion, and all the items you work so hard for are pretty much irrelevant in that new expansion. They're just throwaway items. Yeah. And I hate that. But with like, when you're playing RuneScape for so long, it makes sense. They can start fresh. They can kind of reinvent ideas they already had, but they don't have to worry about like we're attaching all these items to make them better because you want to keep value to the items you worked so hard for. World of Warcraft, they don't give a shit how hard you worked for those items in the past. They're useless now. I don't know if you guys play World of Warcraft, but that's how it is.
I've never touched
Blood
it.
Fury was another item that was an add-on.
Yes, thank you. There you go.
But yeah, let's get into the items. We could talk about kind of where they fit in the game and whether they're good and they have their uses. So the first item here is the Inquisitor's Mace. So I'm going to read a little blurb for lore right here. Just give me a second. The Inquisitor's Mace was once the personal weapon of the Inquisitor, one of the founders of Sleep. Since the Sleeping Curse incident and the subsequent disappearance of the Sisterhood's leadership, it has remained sealed in the Sisterhood's sanctuary, lost to the world. However, the Nightmare's arrival has unearthed this powerful weapon. Are you brave enough to claim it? This is a one-handed crush weapon. It is tradable and requires 75 attack. It does not degrade. It's a non-degradable one-handed crush item. So the first thing I'm going to say, my biggest gripe, do you guys remember like probably like even over a year, like maybe a year before this came out, they already previewed this armor and they had a giant flail. It wasn't a mace, but it was a flail. Do you remember?
I do not remember that at all. Actually, when was this? Was this like in RuneFest or?
They teased it with RuneFest, and it was supposed to come out with Theater of Blood. They had 3 armor sets, and for some reason, they just kind of scrapped it.
I think I remember what you were talking about. People did not like the mace's look when it came out. It's kind of lame compared to the rest of the armor, to be fair. For a 900 mil weapon, it doesn't look that cool, does it, Magpies?
It fits in with the art style, but it does kind of give me a kind of chandelier vibe. A little bit of BDSM in there, but it looks like you're just holding
just a little bit
miniature chandelier, I guess. I don't know. Fits in with the armor, looks great. So I guess when you're wearing it with the armor, it looks in place. But if you're not wearing the full set, it kind of looks like what a tier 70 weapon would look like. If that makes sense, like one step above Dragon.
Do you use it very much, or just at Nightmare?
I do, yes. It is not the best in slot at Nightmare, but sometimes if I'm feeling cheap, I will use it instead of a Scythe for some reason. It is really good for solo CMs. It shreds through Tecton with the full set.
Oh, yeah.
And also, it's not a bad stab weapon option for Vasa and other stab bosses. I'm about to break my chair, but it's not bad. It's a very versatile weapon, I feel like. It's good for Nightmare. It's good for Raids 1. Not really worth it for Raids 2, but other than that, I don't see much use of it. Much use for it elsewhere.
And you think the price is just simply because of its rarity?
Yeah, 100%. We're probably going to have to discuss the inflation of the items at some point, but it's a rare item. Up until the last couple of months where suddenly Nightmare has become really popular to do. Nobody ever used to do Nightmare unless you just wanted to get lucky or you literally had nothing better to do than to hop into a Nightmare free-for-all for some reason. But it wasn't something that teams would go out and do on a Saturday night, hey, let's go do some Nightmare instead of
Corp or whatever, yeah.
If you're asking for my opinion, I think you have to evaluate the set as a whole. The mace itself isn't something special to write home about. I'm not sure if it's that useful for any other Slayer bosses though, but generally you'll just use it for Nightmare, and even then, like, the Scythe is better than the Mace for the most part. You just use it for the parasites to finish them off, I guess.
But the Mace is the new best in slot for Crush, right? Or is it only best in slot for one-handed Crush?
I'm pretty sure it is best in slot for Crush with an Avernic Defender. I'm pretty sure you will get way more out of it than you ever will with the Bludgeon. Is that the best in slot Crush DPS? No. I think the Scython Crush for some monsters is better if you are going by raw DPS numbers, but it varies from monster to monster because of their Crush defense, which you can't lower through spec weapons.
Fair enough. Okay, so yeah, so the Mace is 900 mil right now, 905, according to Runelight GE tracker. That's a lot. A lot of money.
Yeah.
About the same price as an Ellie, which makes sense because they're both from super rare bosses.
Fair enough. But Ellie probably has more uses, doesn't it?
About the same, I would say.
So I sent you guys a picture of the flail that was it was teased way back before Theater of Blood was even released. It was supposed to be gear that was as good defensively as Barrows, but it was best in slot for Theater of Blood. Like, it would have bonuses when you're using it in the theater.
It looks like a fishing rod with, again, a butt plug attached to the end, but a really painful looking butt plug.
A really sick looking butt plug.
If that's, I mean, whatever floats your boat, but I'm not sticking that anywhere.
So personally, I thought that a flail, like that design of the weapon, I was kind of disappointed to see the mace because I had seen the flail that was teased with the armor way back.
Yeah, that's fair. And we also did get a flail from the quest that came out. Darkmar quest came out later. I mean, an updated version of the flail, so I don't know if maybe they'd saved it for that.
Here's what I don't understand, though, is like, Jagex, why are you making this so hard? You love attachments on your weapons. You love tying things into lore. Why didn't you just make the drop an attachment that you put on the flail? Boom. It incentivizes people doing the new quest. Boom. It fits in with the lore. Boom.
I agree. Yeah, 100%.
I've run out of ideas, but I just want to keep saying the sound effect. But you know what I mean? Like, it could have been so much better fitted. Even if they didn't want to add a mace for whatever reason, or if they felt like they wanted to add a mace specifically, surely they could have made the flail of the quest into a mace, because you have to rebuild the flail from the ground up, from what I remember.
You use the that staff you have, the
Rod of Avandis. Yeah, you have to upgrade it.
The next one we have the Nightmare Staff and Orbs. So there's a set of 3 different staffs, I guess you would say. But here's a little blurb of lore for the staffs. Its former name long since lost to the world, the Nightmare Staff is a powerful magic weapon once in the possession of the shamans of Ashiyama. Through the use of different colored orbs, the shamans were able to adapt the staff to any task, giving them complete power over the island. Alas, even the shamans were not able to withstand the power of the Nightmare. Now, their staff is all that remains. The Nightmare Staff is a rare drop from the Nightmare. It is a tradable, requires 65 magic, 50 hit points to equip. It does not degrade and can auto-cast both standard and ancient spells. The Nightmare has a rare chance of dropping 3 different orbs. These orbs are tradable and can be attached to the Nightmare Staff to change its powers. Attaching an orb to the staff makes it untradable and gives it a magic requirement of 75. So the orb has the following effects. I'll mention the first one and we'll talk about it and then we'll move on to the next. The first one is the Harmonized Orb. It's blue. It's the blue orb. This allows the staff to cast standard spells a tick faster than normal and removes the tick delay when auto-casting. However, the staff loses the ability to auto-cast ancient spells.
This is the new most valuable PVM drop in the game. It is hovering between 1.5 bill and 1.6 bill right now as a drop.
Damn.
I believe the best DPS in the game, hands down, for like auto attacks for magic, like best consistent DPS instead of a special attack or something. So It is really, really strong if you use it for the right content, but the downside is there's very few places in the game where it's actually the meta to use this weapon. Why do you ask that, why do you say that, Magpies? Good question, Magpies. Let me tell you why. Because this weapon forces you to be on standard spells, and if you do any kind of consistent PVM, it is very rare, especially in a team-oriented PVM activity where you are on the standard spellbook and are using like standard spells for DPS. The only places where this is like generally hands down best in slot are Zulrah, where it shreds through Zulrah's phases. If you're doing challenge mode in a team and you are on standard spellbook, obviously you'll bring it because it melts with Fire Surge. Let me clarify that the DPS, the reason why it's the best DPS in the game is because when you use a Tome of Fire with it and use Fire Surge, it is the best like spell / trident attack in the game in terms of DPS, because it also speeds up your auto casting to match like a trident's attack speed. It's also best in slot for Nightmare, so it ties into the whole best in slot item comes from or the best in slot meta for the content comes from the content itself. Very strong, but very, very limited in its scope of content to do it with.
Huh, okay. Would you not bring this in just like a regular Chambers of Xeric run?
You might.
Do people that own harmonized orbs usually don't do regular Chambers of Xeric runs?
True.
Probably.
I'm so sheltered.
I'll just be perfectly honest.
Yeah, from what I know, for speedrunning, you still bring Venge over a Harm Orb. If you're going for a world record, for example, for Chambers, or you're going for Vasa Tecton Vespula Tightrope Crabs, you will probably bring Vengeance and Venge Bomb the daylights out of Vasa and Tecton. I don't know if that meta has changed since I last took a look a few months ago, but if you're doing normal raids and you're bringing Fire Surge for Tecton or Waters, you can definitely bring this, I guess. It will be super, super useful. Other than that, though, you probably have somebody on Ancients for Mutadals. You probably have somebody on Humidify or Waters or whatever. So
I've only ever seen one in the game. But
Okay.
I don't go to the GE much, to be fair.
Fair enough.
But it was a guy grinding for PBs at Zulrah.
But this would probably be good for, I mean, if you had enough money and you were this crazy to bring it in PvP, this would probably shred, right?
Tribriding for sure. If you're doing low, sub 20 wildy PKing, because you need to TB people, plus you want to be able to smack and you don't have Ancients, then yes, this would be best. Crazy risk though.
Yeah,
I'd love
definitely.
to see it.
The next one is the Volatile Orb, which is the orange orb. This gives the staff a special attack that fires a single spell at the target. This spell requires no runes to use, but costs 55% of your special attack energy. The attack deals up to 58 damage, which can then be increased using damage boosting items and it has 50% improved accuracy. This number includes the staff's own magic damage bonus.
Lamppost Pures.
yes. So you know how you were just talking about PvP? The reason why I stopped myself is because this is the PvP orb. This is the orb for PvP because it gives magic a KO weapon. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how much the spec can actually hit because it's 58 base damage, and I believe you can get it up to 65 to 70, somewhere around there.
It's enormous. It's similar to an AGS.
Damn, that's sick.
Yeah.
Now, the real problem with it, though, is that magic is less consistent. It won't hit consistently as high as an AGS if you're a high-level account. So the meta has become low-level pures using this thing, because when it hits people, if you're level 50, 60 account that can just wield the staff and you pop the spec on them, it's essentially going to one-shot you. True.
Yeah, that's fucked.
Conversely, though, it also gives Tribrids another KO weapon to keep you on your toes. Because generally, if you're and this is from somebody who almost never PvPs, if you're PvPing, you're generally waiting for a melee type KO. Or sometimes you'll get a ballistic KO in there, but for the most part, you know that the finishing move is going to come from D-Claws, AGS, Granite Maul, sometimes depending on how low level PvP you're doing, but this means that now if you're like doing proper, like in an imaginary world where you're not risking anything, or if you're just dueling somebody at a POH or something, you have to pay attention to any kind of mage switches for their finishing move, because it means they can pop this off and smack you in the face and make you go to night.
Now, I wonder if you are good enough to bring a volatile staff to PKing, you're probably a very good PKer, at which point you're probably good enough that you can always one-tick an AGS, which means that the person wouldn't see it coming anyways.
But conversely, and I'm going to push back on that, because if you're good enough to be in that bracket, if you're competing with someone on equal level, the other person's going to be good enough to know that there's the threat of one ticking an AGS and be able to like camp either melee prayer when they need to or something like that.
True. Okay, so you're talking in fights where you're not using prayer though, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I'm just talking about like
tri-Bridding in the wilderness, not like GE by like 1v1 fights.
Yeah, I don't know how like the meta changes from area to area based on the orb itself, and how like frequent it can be used, or like how frequent it appears as a combo weapon based on where you are. I've never really given that much thought, to be honest. So I guess you're probably on the right track there. You'd probably know more than me about if people at the GE,
right. You would definitely, like, if you could no risk, you'd probably definitely bring it into the wilderness. But if you like are at the GE where no one actually uses protection prayers, then it's just strictly worse.
Yeah.
But it's great for like pures, because pures don't have the defensive capabilities that mains do, so it's way more consistent.
Yeah.
Hardcore Ironman hunters love the volatile nightmare orb.
You're crazy. And it's 220 mil right now, so I mean it's not 1.4 bill like the harmonized orb, but it's still up there, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, it's got its uses for sure.
So we'll move on to the next one, the Eldritch Orb, which is the green orb. This gives the staff a special attack that fires a single spell at the target. This spell requires no runes to use, but costs 75% of the special attack energy. The attack deals up to 44 base damage, which again can be boosted using damage boosted items. This number includes the staff's own magic damage bonus. It also restores the caster's prayer points by 50% of the damage dealt. This can boost the caster's prayer points above the prayer level to a maximum of 120. Now, before we get into it, let's check to see how much it's going for. 145 mil. That sounds kind of cool, although I don't know, where is this good? Who's using this?
One word, Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
We can move on now. It's literally
Is it better than SGS?
Yes, SGS you don't bring into the Inferno. It's never worth bringing an SGS into the Inferno. But with this, you could probably get away with not bringing a Kodai and instead bringing this, because it doesn't lose. Know how only the Harm Orb lose the ability to autocast Ancient Magics? The Volatile and Eldritch Orbs, you can still be on Ancients. So you go into the Inferno with Ancients, obviously, and you can use this to pre-charge your prayer, from what I remember, and basically run in there with 120 prayer, which is a massive buff to like your early waves, because you don't have to conserve as much prayer. And then if you do bring it in, restoring your prayer points by 50% of the damage is really, really sweet. I don't know if you would bring it over a Kodai. The people who grind Inferno that I know, like who just enjoy doing Inferno, normally don't bring an Eldritch. I don't think so.
Right, but for a first-time caper, probably a good option, right?
Yeah, it's probably an option. And the reason why you don't want to bring an SGS, even though like I made the mistake of bringing an SGS, it'll slow down your runs more than it'll help you, because you can blowpipe spec for HP regen, so that goes out the window. And then if you bring a restore instead of the space that you brought the SGS with, you're already getting more prayer out of that restore than you are from the SGS specs.
Your blowpipe specs just have to hit, though, don't they?
Well, Fantasy. Everything has to hit. Your SGS spec has to hit.
Yeah, I'm just joking, but yeah, you're totally right. Yeah, Orb seems like an interesting option for like a first-time cape if you're if you really just want to try it out. It's only about double the price of a Kodai, which if you have real Inferno gear, it won't be that much more for you. So it's probably worth exploring.
But it's only the Inferno that you guys can see it has its use for?
Well, that's what I know it has a use for. I don't know if anywhere else off the top of my head where this is going to be used.
They also just pull, because it's a 75% spec. It's essentially just one spec, and an SGS is 2. So it's pretty much inferior at all other places to an SGS because you get 2 specs versus 1. So they pulled it recently. Spoiler alert for our episode 6 months down the road. That it goes down. That they pulled it down to like 55%, so like you get 2 specs out of it.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it's
I haven't checked if it's passed or not, but I assume it would because the orb is pretty bad.
I assume this might be useful in like a really, really niche situation where you are, for some reason, ice barraging like Necreals or something, or ice barraging Dust Devils on a Slayer task, and then you bring an Eldritch Orb switch for some reason instead of or you can bring it instead of a Kodai, but if you get like a Superior, you just like spec the daylights out of a Superior, get a bunch of prayer back. I don't know, like I'm just visualizing ways that you can use. You'd definitely be needing to like be doing some kind of mage activity where you're not going to be using any other type of spec to make it useful. So,
and if you can afford this, you've probably done the Falador Elite Diary and have access to the free shield.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's a lot of things. The problem is this is like trying to fill a niche, but there's already quite a few good options there, and it doesn't quite get there.
So it's kind of like a filler item just to fill up the drop table.
Exactly, and its rarity makes it that it's just, it's not really useful.
Okay, so let's move on to the next piece of gear we have. It's the Inquisitor's armor. The Inquisitor's armor once belonged to the Inquisitor. She crafted it from her old Justiciar garb, altering it to better reflect her newfound ferocity. The Nightmare's emergence has disturbed this powerful armor from its resting place, ready for a new owner to claim it. When killed, the Nightmare has a rare chance of dropping one of the 3 pieces of the Inquisitor's armor. A new set of melee armor with a focus on crush, accuracy, and defense. The 3 pieces are the Great Helm, the hauberk, and the plate skirt. All 3 pieces require 70 strength, 30 defense. Strange. They are all tradable, do not degrade, and can be packed into a set at the Grand Exchange. Thoughts on this, and why the 30 defense? That always seems so strange to me.
Because they don't want this to replace Bandos, even though it gives the same strength bonus. The hauberk and the plate skirt, I believe, give the same strength bonus as Bandos. So right off the bat, it is really, really, really weak in terms of its defensive stats. It's like equivalent to Adamant or something. So with that 30 defense, it gates it from a lot of other content that it would have otherwise been useful for. But I think it also kind of provides a little bit more of a niche. The one thing that I don't understand is how like this is the corrupted version of Justiciar, which is supposed to be like super tanky defensive gear, and all of a sudden it gets like a red paint job and it's like the worst defensive gear in the late game.
It doesn't make sense. It also, the 30 defense opens up options for PvP, right? So it lets Zerkers use it, and it maybe opens up new builds.
Seems so strange. It doesn't look like a Bandos style. Like Bandos, when you look at it, you're like, yeah, this is more of like an offensive.
It looks like you got steroids, yeah.
Yeah, it's like enough. You look at it, you're like, yeah, this is definitely an offensive piece of gear because that's not going to defend shit. You're wearing a little skirt and stuff, and your chest is sticking out. But yeah, this.
I think it's because of the skirt is a lot different. Like it's a full plate skirt rather than just like the little mini skirt that the tassets are. But I really think the helm looks super cool.
The whole armor itself looks cool. It's
really
just I don't know. Again, when it comes to like actually, so you bring a new player to this game, and if you were to like lay out some of the gear and like where it comes from and the stat requirements with it, people are gonna be like, I don't get it. Why does this have 30 defense and 70 strength? But
it does seem a little arbitrary. But this is a quality set of armor.
It looks dope. Where do you see its uses? You mentioned PKing, you see some people with it. Well, first, let me just mention it is.
I was just saying that could be a reason why they decided to add the 30 defense. I think it's too expensive to ever be seen in PvP.
Fair enough. So yeah, the whole set itself is 1 bill, 225 for the helmet, 380 mil for the chest, 400 mil for the skirt. So yeah, where else would you where could you see this being used?
Magpies is a proud owner of the set. Where do you use it, Magpies, usually?
Yes. So, number one, obviously Nightmare. I should have mentioned this when we went over the Nightmare boss, but it is weak to Crush specifically. So when you fight it, you change up your gear normally and your attack styles. So if you don't have an Inferno Cape, you actually bring a Myth Cape instead of a Fire Cape, because that's actually better DPS if you've got a Scythe or something. So it forces you to change your setup exclusively to Crush because of how punishing it is to use any other attack style. Which means armor that buffs the Crush bonus, which I'm not sure you actually mentioned. I don't think it's even in this... it doesn't even mention the set effect, but it has a set effect, which I realize now they did not actually mention, which is it buffs your Crush damage and your accuracy if you have all 3 pieces equipped. So me talking about why I needed money to get the last piece of the set is because you need the full 3 items for the set effect. So basically anywhere where you use Crush primarily and you're not on Slayer, which again is very, very, very random, a very rare of an occurrence, you would pull the Inquisitor's armor. So where do you see this? You see this in Nightmare, where you put your Scythe on Crush and this becomes best in slot. You will also see this if you are going for fast Tobs and you have a big bank account and you want to bring an Inquisitor switch for your specs, and if you're a melee roll, you bring it with Ham Joint because it will help you during the Nilo waves. You also bring it so your BGS gets a little bit more accuracy and damage as well. Other than that, it has very, very limited uses. So if you're doing solo CM, you can bring it if you're going to be prepping. So if you're not speeding through the solo CM and you are going to stop for prep, it's probably worth your while to bring Inquisitors, because it wrecks Tecton, like I mentioned. It also wrecks Ulm, the new best in slot for solo, and the new meta if you're doing like a normal casual solo, if you're doing a solo CM where you prep, is to bring the Inquisitors and put your Dragon Hunter Lance on Crush. And basically it makes you never miss a Warhammer spec. It's really, really cool. Also makes you look like a badass. The one thing I don't understand is the preview that they use for the mace, where they have the item. They have best in slot melee gear everywhere, except the gloves are Barrow's gloves instead of Ferocious. So, minor point, but Jagex, come on.
And then in the second picture, they have Guardian boots as if it's like a defensive set now.
Yeah, you're right, actually.
So wherever the Dragon Warhammer is effective, which is many, many places, because it's super important to be able to hit those to make bosses more effective, I think that's where this is good. And that's one of the reasons it's such a useful armor set, because of how powerful Dragon Warhammer is and how important it is to hit those specs.
Except for Slayer, though.
Yeah, except for Slayer. So even if you have the Slayer helmet will override the whole set.
Yeah. Yep. I'm trying to pull up like ideals.
But let's not complain about the Slayer helmet because it's already busted. So
that's a whole nother can of worms. One big theme I kind of feel from all these items is that they have like a couple uses.
Yep.
Yeah.
For the most part. The Harmonize seems pretty good, but even still, for how good it is, it's not going to replace everything. Like, it sounds like even the Trident will be more commonly used still, even if you have both items.
Yeah, and it's not like an uncommon thing for when you get into late game for upgrades to be super niche, right? Like, realistically, upgrading from Blessed D'hide to Armadillo makes like quite a small difference for the price.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for things like Inquisitor. The jump is just bigger to that next price bracket of items.
I think the strange thing for me is that, like, Blessed D'hide to Armadillo, once you get Armadillo, you'll use it for, like, a lot of different things. Like, most things when you're ranging, I'll have that instead of my Blessed D'hide that I usually had. Whereas even if you have the harmonized orb and the trident, there's still a lot of cases you'll still be taking the trident.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Am I wrong in
that's
that?
that's totally true. And I think that's just the nature of the game. When you start getting into the late game and you have all your bases covered, the things that you're purchasing or collecting are just more niche versions of something you already own, slight improvements, like really minor, or just something to help you out somewhere else.
Yeah.
You guys worried at all that it's becoming? I know that they're not only doing these like niche upgrades, because with Theater of Blood we saw the Avernic Defender, which was a full-on upgrade. We saw the Scythe. Was there anything else that was like
Sanguinesti Staff?
Sanguinesti Staff, yeah. A lot of those were like full-on complete
Dragon
upgrades.
Hunter Lance and Dragon Hunter Crossbow, stuff like that.
Yeah, and then
there's lots of stuff that's really like that.
Chambers of Zarek, the T-bow replace a lot. The blowpipe, which was it's not new, but it's still it's new to RuneScape, like OSRS. It was
an item that is unique to OSRS. Yeah,
exactly. Like those items came in and they were best in slot for like they didn't have niche uses. They were good for everything.
And that's because I think when the game first came out, like back in the day, you had all your bases covered. Like for late game items, you had your spirit shields and you had your, I'm trying to think what else. Your God Wars dungeon, your hilts, and you had your Armil crossbow, etc. And they just had to expand on it to add new items. That's like one of the problems we talked about. It's just getting harder and harder. And I think Magpies is totally right. They're just going to keep adding attachments.
Do you think that's a bad thing? Or like if they were to never add in a new bow that would have been better than the T-bow, do you think that would be a problem?
No.
Or do you think it's okay for the T-bow to still stay like the de facto?
There is no way they can add something stronger than a T-bow or a blowpipe.
T-bow is already ridiculous. Blowpipe as well. My God,
people don't seem to like recognize how busted the blowpipe is. The blowpipe is the single most overpowered weapon in the game. It is better than the T-bow by far.
There's a clip I've played in one of the past episodes, however long ago, that was of Matt, when Mod Matt K was still working there, and they asked if you could make any change to the game, what would you do? And I think he said full on remove the blowpipe.
Yeah, so
it's so broken.
And he was the what was it? The lead content manager or something? I can't remember what the line was, but he was like the big boss who was watching the direction of old school RuneScape, if I'm not mistaken.
So I have two possible theories on why so many best in slot. Well, let's talk about what the problem is. Is there a problem? Yes. What is the problem? The problem is they introduced way too many overpowered items into the game so fast and so early into OSRS's lifespan that basically they've shafted themselves in terms of what they can implement and what items they can add in the future. Why was this like a thing? And I have two general like theories. One is the really like not naive, but like is the innocent theory of like give them the benefit of the doubt. Jagex just didn't know better about like how overpowered these items would be, or how I guess how to balance gear early on in the game cycle. They didn't have those concerns. The second theory is I don't think they thought that the game would last or be as big as it has become, or last as long as it is, which we'll go over actually in a second, which would be a good segue. But I don't think they realized that they're going to need to look 5-10 years down the line, because I feel like when they added Zulrah and stuff like that, it was like, yeah, we're going to add content, we're supporting the game because OSRS is getting big. Let's just make Zulrah this really strong, tough boss. And then people started grinding it for money, and then Venezuelans started grinding it for money, and then bot farmers started. So everybody just does Zulrah now like it's nothing. But I think,
yeah, they didn't have that longevity in their mind.
Yeah,
I don't really blame them either, because how could they have known that it would be so successful?
Yeah. Especially when the trends show that it wasn't gonna, player count was dropping hardcore right after it was released. It was like a steady decline.
Yeah. And the problem now is that they basically, the entire like nature of the game, RuneScape is all about like the historical progress that you've made from the moment you set foot on Lumbridge to where your account is at now. So the one thing that they can never do is take away from that progress. They are not going to turn around and say, so if you're playing I don't know. I guess most people play League of Legends, and there's a lot of parallels, but I've never played it, so I'm going to use Call of Duty or like a first-person shooter game or something. If you have an overpowered gun, right, you use it, you get through like 100 games with it, it wrecks, everybody's complaining about it. The developer just patches in a nerf to that gun, and it's like, okay, it doesn't affect anything from now on because you, in a new game, or if it's like a new hero in League of Legends that gets nerfed or whatever, you can just retweak the game because every game, every match, every second is a split individual moment, which doesn't really relate to what you did in the previous game or what you're going to do in the game after. But with old school, because it's an MMO, because it's so progress focused, you can't just nerf the blowpipe or you can't just take it out of the game if it's super busted, because Iron Men like Heartless have, Heartless obviously very famously went super dry for his blowpipe, and now next thing you know, there's going to be a news blog that says we're going to take the blowpipe out of the game. He's going to be like, what the hell?
I would actually cry.
Yeah, so they can't really do that because progress in this game is everything. It's not about what you're doing in the moment. It's what you're doing to accomplish later, what you plan on achieving. It's not really about, hey, I'm using the blowpipe now. Isn't it super fast and super cool? I'm killing people so fast. It's more like, okay, I'm using the blowpipe to grind for this content, whatever it is, whether it's like a raid or if you're just using it for Slayer or something.
Also devalues it for the people that have already done the content.
Exactly, yeah. So if you have to go through the Inferno without the blowpipe now, A, people are going to complain that they didn't get a chance to do it with the blowpipe, and B, are you going to force everybody who did it with the blowpipe to do it again? Are you going to delete all the records for the fastest Theater of Blood times, fastest Chambers times, all that stuff? Like Grotesque Guardians, for example, use a blowpipe there, which I know we've gone on a massive tangent, but it's all relevant to the Inquisitor set and why you have this 1 bill armor set that is basically trash everywhere in the game except for 3 or 4 places where it's a marginal upgrade to its alternative. Sure, if you're going against people of equal skill and they're doing the same amount of DPS that you are doing, it's going to definitely change the odds in your favor, but otherwise it's just going to be a minor upgrade.
Now, okay, what do you guys think about if it at some point became like the World of Warcraft route, where the best in slot items were not throwaways though, because RuneScape's different, but what if they pumped out so much PVM content that in order to do 2021's the new raids of 2021, let's say they released 7 raids next year, let's just hypothetical, but even to compete in those raids, you needed to have weapons that were as strong as the T-bow or weapons that were as strong as the harmonized orb. You can't even compete in them with a blowpipe because it's just not strong enough. Do you think that creates a different problem in itself? Or because next thing you know, the rewards that come from those 10 new raids that come out next year will probably make doing bandos a walk in the park.
I think content that comes out needs to have not necessarily a low floor for entry, but it needs some floor that a large portion of the PVMer, let's say they release raids 3. Anyone who's doing raids 1 and 2 need to essentially be able to attempt raids 3 and do it fairly comfortably once they understand the meta. And then there needs to be additional pieces. I think Chamber of Xeric is perfect. Once you get the certain levels and items, you can do Chamber of Xeric. Then, if you're really, really, really good, you can take on challenge modes, and there are extra rewards for you for doing that. So it can separate average PVMers from sort of the elite group. I think catering towards the elite group is very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because it alienates the whole player base.
I don't consider myself part of the high-level community. I think they're a bunch of no-lifers generally, but I don't think you should ever tweak a game based on what the 0.1% think is going to be adequate in terms of difficulty. There are people who are calling for Inferno challenge mode and stuff. Sure, I guess that's fun, and I know that the JMods are actively considering it, but that content is going to be
it's already challenge mode.
Yeah, well, it's technically Fight Cave challenge mode, right? But it's also that 99% of the player base is not going to be able to access that content at all. And I know resources are scarce, time is scarce, developer time and developer resources are not something that is easily obtained. So I think they should just be able to add different elements of content for different like play styles and different combat brackets or whatever. So for example, wow, everybody's been saying raids 3 in a desert. I've been saying this for like 2 years now. Make it a pyramid so that the lower level is accessible only to like weaker levels, and then the top level where all the cool super hard bosses are accessible to the end game players. And that way you have content that's accessible to everybody, but it's also specialized in a way that doesn't make it a cakewalk for the end game players or really difficult for the mid game players or the early game players.
Yeah, anyways, that was just like a little think tank question. I like the idea how Raids is on a tier, but like Chambers of Xeric kind of fits with Theater of Blood. It's not like an overall leap. Theater of Blood, it is leap up, but it's not like a huge leap up, if that makes sense. When your account is ready for Chamber of Xeric, it's kind of ready for Theater of Blood as well.
A little bit like it's different. It's just like 5 or so levels different, I would say, but also gear-wise, if you're ready for Chambers, you're probably ready for Theater.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Anyways, that was the Nightmare of Ashiyama. Yeah, and another boss sitting on the step of Corporeal Beast, not the step of raiding though. So I think we can move on from there. Overall, it's a fun boss. I enjoyed doing it. I think it's pretty well done. We talked about our gripes with some of the items, but that's totally okay. All right. Next thing to talk about. This is just a quick one. It's just something I want to quickly mention. I don't want to go too much into it because it's about leagues, and we have the new league coming out soon. No point in talking about their plans 6 months before it was even released. But one thing I liked was after the Twisted Leagues, the Twisted Leagues was finished, they kind of took another look at games that also do their own version of leagues, like seasons, which was, they mentioned here, Path of Exile, Diablo 3 are 2 examples that they kind of looked at to get some inspiration from. And they really want leagues it almost seems like they want to bring players who are only interested in leagues, not so much, Heartless, he into Iron Man, Magpie, you're into endgame PVM stuff, you got skillers, you got PvPers, and this might bring in a new player base of people who only do leagues. Now, there is right now a huge gap between them, but Path of Exile, Diablo 3, that's kind of how they do it. They have people who only care about the seasons. Again, it's something we'll talk more about when we do an update on the leagues, but we'll skip over that. But one other thing I wanted to talk about, and it's kind of, main reason I want to mention is because I do see a lot of this. I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups for Old School RuneScape just because I like Facebook groups and just fun, whatever. It doesn't matter. But they previously added, before this dev blog, it's called the early game and adventure paths. So they added these things called adventure paths. None of us are going to see it. I made my hardcore Iron Man and I didn't even notice these adventure paths because it's not available for Iron Man, and it only is available if at the very beginning, when it asks your experience of RuneScape, if you click I'm a brand new player, then it gives you the adventure paths. And what the adventure path does is it gives you like these, they're not quests, but gives you these tasks to do, and they give you little rewards. So it might be, one of the examples is reach level 5 in attack, and this will give you a free steel longsword. And it's something I completely forgot about. I don't know. This is probably something you completely forgot about too, right?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I had to do a second glance because I was like, well, how do I access this on my Hardcore Iron Man? Then I realized this is only content for very brand new players. And main reason I wanted to bring it up was because
Eyeing up that steel longsword there, Dilz.
Oh, hell yeah. And if you're a member, you get 500 gold. How sick is that? So, main reason is to like mention, I don't know, if anyone's a brand new player who might be listening to this and you misclicked and you didn't get the adventure path, or maybe not even realize the adventure path, it's like an awesome way to give you little goals. Because when I was talking to my friend on Facebook who had never played RuneScape, he dabbled into it. He did dabble into old school RuneScape, but his first thing was like, yeah, I was just completely confused. I didn't even know what to do. I ended up just getting bored and logging off. But this adventure path gives these new players goals. So cool update, was a great choice, even though it's kind of like the hardcore Inferno mode, but on the opposite end, where it's catering to like the 10% of players who are brand new to the game. But it's cool. It's good that they saw a need for this. Okay, moving on. Was there? Oh yeah, the birthday event.
So you know how like we're just talking about how they didn't realize how long Old School's lifespan was going to be, and I remember like a few years ago, Deegan mentioned when he was on the show how MMOs usually have a 7-year lifespan.
Yeah, that was a Mod Ash quote, actually. He mentioned it maybe in like a live stream.
Mm-hmm. And so, with that in mind, February 2020 is when Old School hit its 7th birthday. So there was the birthday event that they do every year for Old School. They changed up the mobile photo, I think, as well. The app on your mobile to add like a little cupcake and a candle icing to like the rune stones that they use for R&S. So they let you go into the museum, I think, again. I think the museum's always been there, but basically they just tried to celebrate. They added a bunch of merch. I know that they had the cool jackets, Iron Man jackets, I believe. And then I know there was something else specific to the 7th anniversary, but I cannot remember. Oh, that's what it was. It's right here. Tim and Crunchy, the official RuneScape handbook that used to come out like 20 years ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
If you remember, there was the skeleton and the adventurer sitting at a table somewhere. They added a pin. I believe it's for your backpack.
Oh, that's badass. Yeah, it looks really nice.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Then you have like...
So apparently it also came with a fun little quest too, because 19 years ago, 2001 of this dev blog, was when Romeo and Juliet was first released. And it says Juliet spent all of her time moping around in the house. The problem is she's supposed to be hosting a birthday party, but she can't work up the motivation to do it. If only some kind players would pop over to her house to see if they can cheer her up. Plus, she'll almost certainly accept your help if you have skipped her quest the first time around. I wasn't playing during the time. Any of you guys do this little mini event?
Yeah, I think it was just like you go grab some ingredients for her for a cake.
Oh, fair enough.
You like grab party.
Yeah. And then there was like a party in her house with a bunch of random characters. It's pretty fun.
Happy belated birthday. It's been 8 months, but we're finally celebrating.
Here we are, year 7 in COVID hit, so maybe there's a coincidence there. But yeah, fun little note. They did a hot fix a couple days later because apparently it was they had banners up for the 6th birthday, RuneScape's 6th birthday, so they forgot to change up their little banners there. That's pretty much it for February. They teased on some updates, but we're not going to talk about polls and stuff because we'll talk about what actually got released on the month that they actually come out. Sweet. So there it is. Next time we'll be going through March's updates. Let me do some quick housekeeping before we get out of here. So if you want to support the show, patreon.com/The Wilderness Podcast. Thank you everyone who is supporting the show. You guys are fantastic. If you want to come hang out in game, Wild CC is the place to do it. We have a Discord, Twitter, The Wilderness RS. Do you guys want to throw anything out there?
Sign up to my OnlyFans.
Yeah, hell yeah, nice. Sucks. I heard about it getting nerfed.
CC's a great place to like if you want to learn raids or get into PVMing. There's lots of people to teach you there. So,
or Iron Man stuff. Everyone has an Iron Man right now.
There's so many young Iron Men. So,
or if you're just a skiller, it's for everybody. It is a general
absolutely
CC. So if you're into PVM, hop in. If you're not into PVM and you're into skilling, hop in. If you're into mini games, hop in. If you're into Fashionscape, send me like your Fashionscape ideas on Discord or something.
Yeah, we have skillers too. There's like people from all sorts of walks of the community. PVM, PvPers, there's a couple of them in there too.
Yeah, so badass.
So
love it.
Yeah, nice, well-rounded group.
Wicked, awesome. Okay, let's skedaddle then. I forgot to mention it last week. It's something that I used to do. Our song of the week is, as it was last week, Escape 5. It's the they released in 2018, and it was during RuneScape's 5-year birthday. So
perfect.
Reusing the same songs.
I want to also give one last minute shout out, if that's okay, to Chick. I haven't been able to reach out to him, but hope you're doing better, buddy. I wanted to wait until it was an episode, so hopefully you're listening to this and it brightens your day up instead of a random Discord message. So take it easy, dude. Much love. I know he's been going through some stuff, some physical stuff, so I wish him all the best.
He's also been going through stuff. It was his birthday a couple days ago, too, so happy belated birthday on the podcast.
I still owe you a bond, by the way, Chick. We have a long-standing bet for whenever you get a pet, the other person pays them a bond, so...
Nice.
Yeah, I hope he's feeling better.
All right. Thanks, guys, for joining this week, and we'll hear from us soon.
Take care, everyone.
Take it easy.